Okay, guys, very exciting podcast episode today. Is Forever, book club of the book Forever. This is my copy from middle school with my little name in the front. With my little name in the front, you see it? Aw, so fun. I think this is a really good conversation about this book because Kirsten and I read this book when we were in middle school, and Cathy had never read this book before. So it was really great to get Cathy's perspective, and I was just fascinated by how I reacted to the book. And I was really, really surprised at how much I learned from this book. And I'm super sad at least I don't know of a book that is modern that kind of deals with the same subject matter. So this was a really good conversation. We also talked about parenting. I vented some frustrations with having teenagers. And it was really fun conversation. So I hope you enjoy this week's episode with Cathy and Kirsten, book clubbing the book Forever by Judy Blume. Please feel free to share my podcast if you know anybody who would be interested in this conversation or any of my episodes. I'd appreciate that. And thank you so much, everybody who emails me every week. I don't get to respond to every email, but I read every single email. And I really do appreciate your input and your feedback and your compliments and your criticism. I appreciate all of it because why wouldn't I? A criticism either doesn't apply or makes you a better person. So, and you get to decide which that is. So keep it all coming. I appreciate it. And hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks for coming back.
Hi, ladies.
Morning.
Hi. I love your shirt.
You love my shirt?
I do. I love
cute.
it.
You know, I decided to wear it today. I was like, I don't think I've ever worn it on my podcast.
You should.
You haven't?
And, Isla drew the roller skate and then we had it digitized and colored in. She just drew it in pencil. It's actually framed right there. That's her original drawing. And she and I have been butting heads big time for like a week. And this morning, Georgia is in the golf finals, the CIF golf finals. So she had to leave at 4:30 to get to school by 5 to take an hour and a half bus ride to get to the finals on time because it's like 65 miles away. And there's no attendance allowed. So we can't go like support her. We could go sit in the parking lot. But so I had to take Isla to school this morning. And so I thought, I'm going to wear her roller skate shirt and see if I can just olive branch it out. Like, hey, can we be peace out, time out? And I don't know if it worked or not, but something did because she was lovely this morning. She was really great. So maybe she looked at it and went, "Aw, my mommy loves me. Maybe she's not evil." We got in a big argument. Was it Sunday night? Oh, Halloween. Okay, so Bert's been gone October 6th until October 31st. That's a long time. Unfortunately for him, he came home on Halloween with 2 teenagers. But he was in an awesome headspace. He came home, he took a big long nap, got up. I made like pumpkin pasta and Lily came over and Isla and Lily dressed in costume. Georgia got dressed up. Georgia was supposed to go to a party. The party got canceled and they decided they wanted to go see Dune. Bert was in the perfect headspace. He was like, absolutely, go see Dune. It's Halloween. You're not supposed to want to hang out with your dad on Halloween. Go out, have a good time. They walk back in the door from Dune, which is a very long movie, and they start telling him about the movie just as they're walking through the house to the stairway. And he goes, well, come back down and talk to me about the movie. Neither one of them came back down. And I had already prepped them earlier. Listen, your dad's only home for 3 days. His birthday is Wednesday. He's not going to be here. Monday night, we're having people over for his birthday. You need to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, be very mindful to take care of your dad because he's been gone. Neither one of them come down. And I can just see him like crumbling because he's been so good, right? He came home and he wasn't like, and everybody, all about me. He did not do that. He really gave them space. Super mature for Bert.
To be fair, it was 11 on a school night.
It was.
So
it was.
I know.
But 5 minutes would have meant a whole lot.
Yeah.
And that was my point.
Yeah.
My point was a 5-minute delay of your shower to get the green hairspray out of your hair would not have killed you. And it would have been all it would have taken. That's all he needed. was for you to walk in and sit down on the couch and say, so here's what the movie was like. It really sucked. I got to get in the shower. Instead of in passing, walking to the stairway, flippantly telling him something. So I went upstairs and Georgia got it. She was like, totally understand. I'm so sorry. I'm going to go downstairs right now and apologize. Isla was like, what you don't know is I was having sensory processing problems. Did you know that I had to go to the bathroom in the movie and wash the makeup off my face? It was driving me crazy. And it was all I could do to just get home. I just had to get home and get my hair washed. I could not deal with anybody. I could not deal with Dad. And I went, but we didn't know that. How are we supposed to know that? You should know by now I don't like anything on my hair. And I was like, I don't read your mind, actually. And you know, Mom, when you come in here all aggressive like this, it just makes me aggressive. And I'm like, what? When was I aggressive? I said, was I yelling at you? She said, your energy was totally aggressive. And I went, Isla, I was freaking mad. I was mad. And I didn't come in here guns a-blazing, but my energy was probably really perturbed. And I can't just not have any feelings other than neutrality or joy. I have to come in with my real feelings in a measured way. I didn't yell at her. I just went, hey, just so you know, next time, I've already had this conversation about being mindful. You know, I just kind of was very kind of like, what the heck? But not nasty. Boy, she wasn't having it. And ever since that, all day yesterday, it's been just like, Mom sucks. You're so aggro. I'm like, I'm freaking not. And A, I'm not. And B, what am I supposed to do with my feelings? Right? Sometimes I had this thought in my head, this terrible, evil thought in my head yesterday is I just want, when do I get to be the asshole? Everybody else in my house gets to be an asshole on the reg. I don't ever get to be the asshole. Sometimes I just want to be the asshole. Do you guys ever feel like that?
Yeah. Hashtag relatable. Like, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really tough because teenagers are developmentally self-centered. Like they're selfish. And so it's like, you're like, yeah, I get that. I'm an understanding parent. I'm okay. But then, you know, you try to like parent it in a nice way, even though you're angry, you're not yelling, and then you still get treated as though you were screaming and whatever. And it is extremely thankless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Sometimes I want to go all Judy on them. All Judy, my mom, and be like, you want to see something? I'll show you something. This is what I got. And it's not even bad what I got from my mom. She didn't beat me or hit me or anything like that. But boy, I knew when she was mad. I mean, it was undeniable. The neighbors knew when she was mad. Everybody knew she was mad. Nobody knows I'm mad here. Not the mad I really feel. They may read that I'm upset or angry, but like another example, Georgia has a curfew. We agreed on this curfew. The three of us sat down together and said, okay, now that you can drive your friends and now that you're 17 and now that you're a senior, we need to set a curfew because the law set the curfew before. You can't drive after 11. Now you can drive after 11. What's the reasonable curfew? So we decided a weeknight was 11 because she should be actually in bed at 11. So if she's out that late is some special circumstance anyway. But on the weekends, it's midnight. So you need to be home by midnight or you need to tell me you're not coming home by midnight. Saturday night, I fell asleep on the couch, woke up at 12:30 and went, look, no text message. No phone call, no communication from Georgia at all. And I want to call her and go, are you fucking kidding me? We agreed on this. Why do I have to be the asshole that calls you and says, where the fuck are you? That's what I felt like. Why are you not thinking about me? Like, not that I'm self-centered, but we had an agreement. It's a simple agreement. It's not hard. Pick the fucking phone up and go, Mom, I'm spending the night at Daisy's. Have I ever said no? No, I've never said no. I just want to know where you are and that you're safe. And that makes you accountable for your own behavior for yourself. Come on. That's what I wanted to say. And of course I was like, so it's past your curfew and we had an agreed upon curfew. Am I right? Yes, you're right, Mom. I'm sorry. I lost track of time. I was like, I lost track of time too, but this is not the way we're going to work it out. Now, this is the first time that you haven't called or whatever, since you're in the 3 weeks that you've had your driver's license fully. So, I'll let it pass this time, but I'd appreciate and I was like, I fucking hate myself for being so measured, because I wanted to just blow her out of the water, because she does little stuff like that all the time. Mm-hmm. She drives Isla home, and I meet her at golf because it's halfway between school and home. And lately, George has just been socializing for half an hour and not telling me I'm going to hang out at school for half an hour. And I'm sitting at the golf course with my thumb in my ass for half an hour going, where the fuck are they? And then I look on Life 360, they haven't even left yet. And I'm like, you're 20 minutes away. Just tell me. I'm going to hang out till 3:30. I'll see you there at 4. No problem. But the problem is she's actually being late for golf and is misrepresenting that to me. And I'm digging around on the side, finding out, she's supposed to be there at 3:45. She's getting there at 4. She's 15 minutes late for golf practice because she's fucking around with her friends in the parking lot. I just feel like, why? I am a nice person. I do good things. I make pumpkin bread on Halloween morning for you. And this is how you do me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is all so relatable. I'm exhausted.
I appreciate that. So I need some dirt.
There's some dirt. Funny story, right? So you and
I
were having this similar conversation as I'm dropping Lily off for Halloween, right? Complaining about the older teenagers because Max is pulling the same kind of shit. Where like he'll forget. Oh, I thought you knew. No, I didn't. Know.
I get that too.
Right?
I thought you knew.
And he can't be out past 11 yet. He hasn't had his license long enough, right? So he wants to go to this party on Saturday night. And I'm like, okay, well, it's far from our house. Like, you're going to leave at 10:30? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, so then what's your plan? Like, are you going to spend the night? Are you like, what's happening? Because you can't. He's like, no, I'm just going to drive. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. Like, that's not how it works. You either have to leave at 10:30 or I'm happy to bring you. Like, I'm happy. Like, I understand it's a Halloween party. You don't want to leave at 10:30. You're 17. I get it. Like, I'm happy for you to stay later. However, you either need to ask me to bring you home. You either need to take an Uber. You need to stay over. Like, there's some other arrangement that can be made. Like, I'm not punishing you. I'm not saying you can't go, but you cannot drive your car, period. End of story. And of course, I'm the asshole.
Of course.
Yes. Because
even though it's not even your rule, it's
the law.
It's the law.
It is the law, right? But
anyway. That's a ridiculous part.
How dare you, Cathy? How dare you follow the law?
How dare you not allow your 17-year-old to break the law? Yeah.
The problem is these other parents in our periphery who don't make their kid abide by the law.
Correct.
And then our kid sees that kid driving at 1:30 in the morning going, what the heck? He got his license after me. It's because their parent won't hold the line.
Right. And he thinks I'm an asshole because I do hold the line.
Exactly.
My husband sometimes thinks I'm an asshole because I hold the line because he does not want to go pick up Max at midnight. That's really the bottom line. He's like, if he can take an Uber, fine.
But I'm not going.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
so anyway, so Leanne and I are having this conversation as I'm dropping Lily off. Lily's listening to this conversation. She's like outside of the car, standing next to you, hearing us lament about these older teenagers. So what happens that night? I text, I'm like, what time should I pick Lily up? And Leanne texts back, I think they might be going to the movies. And then I get a text from Lily going, so I'm going to the movies here and I'll be home later. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, we just had this conversation. Like, what is the like, hey mom, can I go to the movies?
Yeah.
Am I going to say no? Of course I'm not going to say no. Like, I don't give a shit. Go to the movies. But like, it was just this, like, I'm doing this and whatever.
It's the same thing. It was totally lost on her.
Just heard this conversation about two moms complaining and you did the exact same thing.
Yes.
I was like, you're an asshole.
Yes.
You might be an asshole.
Conclusion. They are all assholes.
Yes.
All
teenagers suck.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for then when I become an asshole because dealing with this behavior, I did lose my cool the other day and I yelled back. I got yelled at for being
you just filled me with so much joy. That makes me so happy. I almost wanted to go, yes.
Oh, I'm so glad it's filling someone else with joy because it's not filling me with joy. Now I feel like a jerk because I did not maintain my cool and now there's the negativity bias where people remember, it's like you remember the insult, but you don't remember the 10 compliments that you got. And I'm like, great. Now my daughter remembers me as the screaming mom, like the scary mom, like where I was like, I literally was expecting the neighbors to come and knock on the door and say, hey, is everything okay here?
God, I wish I'd heard that. I would have lived so vicariously through you.
I totally screamed at Max on Saturday, so I don't feel bad.
You did?
I did, because he was like, you're ruining my senior year. And I was like, wait a minute.
You're ruining my senior year.
I just told you I'd pick your ass up at midnight. I don't have a problem with that. I spent $100 so you could go to Six Flags for 2 freaking hours. I bought you a fucking car. Like,
Right?
are you kidding me? What part of senior year is ruined? Like, I don't understand. But yes, that was, yes. I feel you.
That's hysterical. I can see him saying that, and he means it.
Oh, 100%. I have ruined his life.
Every ounce of his body believes that you have ruined his senior year. That is really funny.
Oh.
And you yelled back at him for that?
I did.
Good.
Because I listed, I was like, are you out of your freaking mind?
Right?
Are you kidding me?
Let me give you some perspective here.
Like, you get out of your self-centered teenage body for 1 second.
They can't.
They can't.
No. He was actually so
totally
great afterwards, but it took me screaming at him going, you are insane. Like,
Yeah, because he is insane. That was an insane statement. You're ruining my senior year. Gee, it's only October. I mean, really? The whole year's done? It's over.
It's true.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
Good
for
times.
letting me laugh about it for a minute, because it's been, I mean, my kids are really, all of our kids in the scope of things are pretty freaking fantastic.
Yeah, these are really good kids that we're talking about.
They're not, nothing shady's going on. You know, Bert, of course, is like, they're definitely doing drugs. And I'm like, they totally are not. I mean, like, Georgia hugs and kisses me when she comes home. There's no alcohol. Her eyeballs look fine. She's having a coherent conversation. She's not. These kids aren't what we were when we were kids. They are much more cautious. So, yeah, we have to keep in mind, I guess. No, we don't have to keep anything in mind. Fuck that. It's how it affects us. It affects us. It's hard to have somebody not have somebody feel like you've literally ruined their life. When it's like, this is, we're functioning in 2 completely different realities.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, is that we are living in 2 different realities. And how do you balance that checkbook? I'm that way with Bert a lot, where Bert will say stuff and I'll go, what world are you living in? This is not the way the world works, right? So maybe that exacerbates it in my house, is I don't have another person to go, can you believe this shit at home with me? Bert's pretty good about the teenage shit, but then he also does the teenage shit, but doesn't relate that it's the same, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to say earlier, I think that's part of the problem, right? Is because, at least in my household, there's a lot of like tension between Stephen and Lily, right? They're butting heads a lot. So I feel like I'm constantly playing middleman when I want to yell at both of them and be like, you're both wrong. Stop the shit.
Yeah.
So there isn't a lot of like ability to get angry because you're just trying to make peacemaker and trying to get everyone else to understand someone else's perspective.
That's me, buddy.
Yeah.
That's me in our house too, with Bert and Georgia. And he accuses me of not being on his team when I do that. But I'm like, but I don't agree with your team. I don't really agree with your team. I think your team is paranoid, maybe schizophrenic, definitely OCD, hyper anxiety driven. So I just don't see that reality. And then Georgia is more in the same reality I'm in. And I can't, Bert has great points sometimes, but it's like a 2. And for him, it's like a 12. And I'm like, no. She's actually at about, okay, I'll meet you at 4. Like that's, okay, let's go to 4. And it just doesn't, it's just really hard.
Yeah.
I understand that frustration. I want to yell at both of them and tell them to go fuck themselves. Both of you just go fuck off. But I'm afraid that they will hurt each other verbally. You're nodding your head really strongly. Are you just agreeing?
Yeah, I've been in both situations there. I've been the one in between saying, both of you shut up. And for the same reason that I don't want them to say something that they'll regret. But I've also been the one that Richard is a very balanced person, and he's been the one to say enough. And I'm like, literally, what did I do? Like, what did I do? One time I left the dining room table because I had to go to the bathroom. I had to pee.
That was a power move.
Yeah, and it was treated like a power move. Like, oh, so you just walk away. And I was like, what? Were we having there was a fight going on? I'm like, I promise you, this is not a power move. I needed to go to the bathroom.
Right.
And I didn't huff. I wasn't like slamming doors or anything. I just
went to the bathroom.
And then I came back and there was all this tension. And I was like, and I'm generally very empathic, and I do have a hyper acute sense of reading the room. So I was like, if I'm not reading the room, like, what is happening?
What's happening? Who's in charge here? Yeah. This is scary. Oh, wow. Well, we'll get through it. And when we're through it, we'll miss it.
Good times. Yeah, right.
We'll miss the struggle. Georgia got into another college.
Awesome.
So it's just getting more and more real, right? Every acceptance letter that's coming in, I'm like, oh my God, she's really leaving. And she really has no interest in staying in California. So she didn't apply to a single, not one in California. Not one. So
that's heartbreaking.
She's leaving.
Yeah.
That's really hard. I'm going to miss her a lot. We all got up at 4. Bert and I both got up at 4 with her. And we walked in the kitchen. She was already in the kitchen. She was like, what are you doing? And I said, well, we wanted to see you off. It's a big deal. You're like playing in the CIF finals. That's a really big deal in golf. And can I make you lunch? Can I do this? Can I cut up some pumpkin bread for the team? And we're doing all this stuff. And she's like, you guys are so weird. And I'm like, why? We want to be supportive parents. We're just trying to be supportive.
How weird of you, Leanne.
I know.
It's really weird.
First, like stirring the natural peanut butter because I ran out of Jif, and I have the natural stuff for my dogs and stuff. And he's stirring the peanut butter, and I'm cutting up pumpkin bread, and we're getting her ready to go. And then she got on the bus and she texted us and said, that was really nice. Thank you very much for doing that. I really appreciated it. I was like, oh, the teenager vibrato calmed down, and she was able to hear her real heart. I think they went, oh, that was really cool. My parents got up. Bert was like, let's walk her to the car. We walked her to the car. Bye. Have a good golf game. So anyway.
That's funny.
Let's talk about this book. Okay, this book. This is my book from when I was a little girl.
Wait, here's the updated version. This is the updated cover.
Judy Blume Forever Ode, Foreheads Together.
Yeah.
So, mine, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it's coming apart.
Mine's coming apart too.
It just came apart.
It just came apart. Oh, and then I wrote my name in it 4 times.
I thought you did it 4 times
to make sure it got back to me. If it was lost or stolen, I'm sure. Leanne Kemp. I was toying with my signature. I think. Oh my God!
Did any of them stick?
Do I still write like that? No. Thank God. Look at my proper A, where I went all the way to the top and started the A again, so everything's continuous. No, I definitely do not write like this anymore. Anyway, what'd you think about this book? I have a lot to say about this book. I was so glad we read it. What do you think about this book?
It was exactly as I remembered it.
Me too.
Exactly.
But I reacted to it differently.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. How do we start this? Because you've never read it.
All right. Well, yes. I will say I've never read this. And as a 49-year-old woman, it was not, it was not great. There was nothing about this book that was remarkable or outstanding. I was like, what are these people talking about? You're insane. This is a terrible book.
Oh, contrary Cathy. Showed up again.
She's bringing it.
She's bringing it. No holds barred.
Yes. I will say I did try really hard to keep in mind that this was for adolescents, right? It's not meant for a 49-year-old
No, it's
woman,
definitely
clearly,
for sure.
right?
And
this
it
is
is
not
written-
a book
yeah.
for me.
No.
So if I were 13, if I personally were 13, I think I probably would have liked this.
Mhm.
But I remember saying last time when we were talking about it, I was like, if it's such a great book, why are kids not reading it?
Mhm.
I understand why 13-year-olds are not reading this today.
Oh, I do too. Yeah.
It does not stand up to the test of time at all.
No.
I can understand 30 plus years ago that I probably would have liked it way back then.
Mhm.
But I get why kids don't read it now. So
What'd you think?
that's my take.
That's your take.
I unsurprisingly did not have as harsh a view.
Shocking, I know.
Nor I.
We're all staying on brand here.
We are staying on brand. Keep in your lane.
It's true.
I still think I think she wrote it in a I think she's a great writer.
Yeah.
I think that she really gets teenagers and like what she really walks you through the whole process in a way that I think most love or sex stories for kids are just like fade to black. Like we kind of, okay, they're making out, but this is literally like insert penis
right.
to vagina. Like this is how it's very mechanical, but in a way that I think it rings true for a teenager. Like, cause it really like walks you through every first experience, like every step towards that first experience. I thought it was interesting reading it as an adult. I was more interested in the secondary characters. Like when I read this as a kid, I was 100% into Michael and Catherine.
Totally.
And I just wanted to cut to the good stuff.
Yep.
And this time I was fascinated by her friend, Erica, the best friend. And then what was really unique to me was that like, oh my God, her grandmother's talking to her about sex and like making an appointment for her at Planned Parenthood. And her, like, there was just so much talking about sex and birth control with the adults. I was like, there is no way either of my grandparents would have ever spoken to me about sex, birth control, anything. I mean,
no, my grandparents, no way.
Yeah. So that blew my mind at the time, but it sort of doubly blew my mind now, just thinking about how long ago this was written. And, I read, I was trying to look up book club questions. Of course, there are not book club questions for forever because it's intended for like 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
And, but I did find a really interesting article in The Guardian by a young adult author who was talking about how, just how much sex there is in it and that there's no fade to black. It's not like, oh, okay. And then we went for it.
Yeah.
And scene. It's really takes like premature ejaculation, like, all of the different things that happen. And he talks about how it's kind of shocking to read now because you don't get that play by play in today's YA. And he said, honestly, in today's YA, what you get is like the comparable book for the age range now is like The Hunger Games. I love The Hunger Games. Like I'm not dissing The Hunger Games in any way. Absolutely loved it. But in that, like 22 children are murdered, and that is sort of where we are as a society now. That we're more comfortable, like with our kids reading those books than our kids reading. Yeah,
interesting. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
That he had. I agree with you in a lot of ways because I understood completely why I love this book at that age. I think it answered a lot of questions for me that I wasn't going to ask anybody. Like how do the mechanics of sex work? I wouldn't have known or understood premature ejaculation at all if I hadn't read this book. I probably would have been really confused by that. My sweet dad, when he sort of figured out I was probably sexually active, just kind of sat on the bed next to me and patted my knee and went, "Why don't you go see Jeff and get some birth control?" All right, good night. And that was it. So there was no conversation. There was like, we don't need to say you're doing this, but I kind of know you are. So just go get it handled. But I think that if I hadn't read this book, because I read this book way before I was sexually active, I wouldn't have really understood it completely. Remember, I'm from a really small town. My mom was super sexual, but I found that unhealthy. I didn't like that. That made me really uncomfortable. So I think this book gave me a little peephole, like where I could secretly look into this real, what I thought was real romance / sexual relationship with someone in my age range and understand how that worked. And even the part of it where she saw him and she thinks about him all the time and he calls and gets excited and then he pressures her to have sex a lot. Whereas I think now this book would be like, you can't write that way. But that's the way boys are driven. Boys are like, once they have a taste of honey, they just want honey all day. At that age, you know what I mean? They're so sexually driven. And so I liked that she had him push her and she was like, no. And then he'd push her a little more and then he'd push her a little more and she'd kind of give in because that happened. And that's a good way with the perspective we're in now to go, oh, actually, I don't have to do that. Like, I liked that in today's perspective. And also, it might not have been good for me as a young person to see her eventually give in because then that's what I would do. Oh, I see you say no, you say no, you say no, and then you give in. That's how that works. Okay, got it. He'll talk you into it. That might not have been good, but I think girls today, if they read it today, would go, "Oh, that's bad. That's not how it works." I also really liked when her parents made her go to camp and separated them, and I remember as a teenager going, "This is terrible. Oh my God, she's going to die.
Yeah.
This is horrible." You think you can't live without that person when you're that age. And then you find that she finds herself a little bit and that she stands on her own 2 feet a little bit and that she meets someone else really great. So I thought that was really healthy because that is what happens in your first relationship, And I think my first relationship with a very sweet man, who's a man now. He was my age, a year older than me, and we were each other's first, and he was so lovely as a person, and I just kind of outgrew him. And I think that this book showed me how that works. Like, we have a friend in our circle who had a girlfriend, and he wasn't happy, and he wanted to break up, but he thought she needed to do something really bad to justify the breakup, instead of, this isn't working anymore. And I don't know why, but it's just not. So I think I learned more from this book now that I read it as an adult. I think I learned more from this book as a young adult than I realized about relationships and sex. Because remember, my mom's divorced 6 times. My dad's divorced twice. At the time I was reading this book, my dad was dating someone who wanted to get married, and he was absolutely opposed to marriage. So all I saw was just broken relationships. I didn't understand how a simple relationship worked. All my relationships were really complex and always ended badly. So I think to see this girl go through this full progression of a first-time relationship was really important for me personally. So and I agree with you. I was reading this book going, it's almost clunky. Like, how did I read it? I'm having a hard time reading it because my brain has moved past the way she writes, right? So I had to back my brain up to be able to read it fluidly. I kept getting clunked up.
Yeah, because it wasn't written for us.
No, it's not written for us. And so I relate to what you're saying. I had a hard time reading the book again. I had to really adjust the way that I processed the language, even how she wrote. But once I did, I read it in 2 days.
Yeah.
And I understand why this book was so important to me. I really do. And I don't know if it's applicable to teenagers today because their world is so different with On every level. It's
Yeah.
just so different. But it worries me that too, because the things that are accessible to them was not accessible to me. A porno was like a videotape that I had never
You had
seen.
to actually walk into a store and rent.
Or
Yeah.
find in your parents' drawer and
Yeah.
sneak and watch. And I never saw a porno till I was older. I saw Playboy magazines, but that's just objectifying beautiful women. And not necessarily in a bad way, but they're beautiful to look at. But what is that? I mean, I don't know what to do. What am I? I don't
Yeah.
look like that. And how does that function in sex? And it has nothing to do with a relationship. And what's their romance? Twilight? That's the most fucked up romance I've ever seen. This fucking guy's obsessed with her and he's dead. He's the walking dead. And her other option is a werewolf? I'm sorry. That's not reality, right?
But I think a lot of romance books these days for this age range is all fantasy based.
I know, that's my
like
point.
everything is.
Where is
that.
this for now?
Yeah, I don't know, but this doesn't hold up for now.
Mm-mm.
I don't think. I was actually had a conversation with this about this book with Isla and Kylie randomly.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Are you exposing my daughter to porn?
I am. We were talking about books, and I happened to be reading this, and it was interesting. Isla hadn't read it. Kylie hasn't read it either, but she was like, "Oh yeah, some of my friends have read that." But it was like this. You know, when you know one of your friends has read a book and you're like, oh, I've heard about that. That's a great book. Her reaction was not that. She's like, yeah, I've heard about it. Like
Yeah.
it was not, it's definitely not out there in
Right.
that age range.
Right.
And that they are the perfect age range for this book.
Except for they're a little
So-
too old. I think they're a little
maybe they're a little
old.
too old.
I
but-
remember I read it when I was like 11,
I was in
something.
middle school.
which I mean, in
sure.
some ways you think like, well, oh, that's so inappropriate. An 11-year-old reading about sex. But it's like you always read about like sort of several years ahead of,
Uh-huh.
you know, it's like
Well,
more
that's part of the
interesting.
attraction in this
Yeah.
book is that it's an older couple. Like
Yeah.
that is what's coming in your life.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's your future.
Like, yeah.
It's what you're about to embark on because they're seniors in high school
Yeah.
when this in this story. Yeah, I don't know. It's really a shame that there's nothing kind of, and you know what
Maybe
would
there
happen
is though.
today?
I mean,
Oh,
what
yeah,
do
maybe
we know?
there is,
Like,
right?
maybe
I have
there's
no idea,
YA out
but-
there that we're not aware of because I'm not reading a lot of YA.
I can tell you this, I highly doubt it. With the way people are helicopter parents these days, if there was this much sex, because they talk about, I mean, he names his dick Ralph. I mean, they talk about
Yes.
naming his dick and touching it and feeling it and sex and condoms. And I mean, it's a full on, and it's not pornography. In my opinion, this is not pornography.
No.
In my opinion, this is a romance novel with erotic, I guess.
It's like a lesson.
It's almost like a lesson. Yeah. I guarantee there's nothing out there now because parents wouldn't stand for it. And the only reason this is around is probably because it's outdated and kids aren't interested in reading it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many helicopter parents. I can't imagine a parent going, you got to read this 50 Shades of 12 years old. You know what I mean? They would never read it.
Yeah, but on the flip side, kids are reading 50 Shades of Grey.
What? Who's reading 50 Shades of Grey?
Well, surely
Please.
they are. I mean,
I
if
mean,
it's-
come on.
If their parents are, then it's
Yes.
the same thing as the porno in the, in the cabinet. Like,
Really?
if there, it's sold.
There are, there are
gazillion
people who are
copies.
exposed to things much earlier than they should be. And
But
there are
that's
people
not a
who
healthy
are-
relationship either.
I'm not
No,
saying it
no,
is,
not at all.
but there are definitely kids who are exposed to that.
Well, I'd much rather
you
my
know.
kid read this book, even if it's
Of
out
course.
of date,
Yes.
even if it doesn't 100% apply. Relationships work the same. I think you are attracted to somebody, you like them, you're intense about those feelings, you can't get enough of that, and then it changes. And then what do you do with that? Because it didn't change for Michael, as far as we know. I mean, it wasn't Michael's story.
Yeah.
Right.
It changed for her. And so
I think the breakup
well-
was like, it was so authentic. I think
Uh-huh.
this guy in The Guardian talks about how it almost reads like nonfiction in some ways. And I'm like, yeah,
Like it's a
it
lesson.
kind of does.
Yeah.
Like it rang very true to me that Michael's rage at her breaking up with him, it felt really like she was being quite mature and like, yeah, time to move on or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was enraged because he had all these feelings. It's like when you're a teenager, you have all these feelings and you don't know what to do with them. And, you know, that rage is something that he could access. And
Yeah, that's a good point, because I broke my first boyfriend's heart. I just broke his heart.
same.
I mean, of course, he's moved on and he's married and he's super happy and it worked out the way it's supposed to. But in that moment, it just broke his heart. I mean, like to the point where his parents were like, he's really suffering. Can you come see him? I mean, it's really bad. And I felt really bad, but I couldn't fake. I couldn't be a make-believe relationship. I wasn't going to do that. And I actually had my eyes on someone else, just saying. But no, not before I broke up with him. But shortly after, I was like, hey, there's a cute guy, because I had already moved on and he didn't. It took him a lot longer. And he did, obviously. But you're right. That's kind of illustrated in this book where she's like, she's already moved on before she broke up with him. And he's still in it. He's still invested. And that's hard. And it takes a lot of bravery for her to go, yeah, this isn't working, and maturity. And where do they have examples of that? Even on film, even on Netflix, where's the show they can watch where it's just real relationship? Is Gilmore Girls like that? I don't know.
Never Have I Ever. I love Never Have I Ever.
What is that?
There's like 2 seasons of it. Mindy Kaling wrote and produced it. I think to me, I mean, it's a comedy, but it's kind of like both
In that
but,
vein.
It's a comedy, but it felt pretty real to me.
Well, here's going back to Drew and Paulina's book. This is something I learned on the podcast with them that really bothered me. She was saying that dating is an antiquated word. We talked about this before, I think, and that people just hook up. So they'll actually just plan right off the bat to have sex and then see if they like the person. Just get it out of the way. And I was like, is that really how kids are functioning these days? And she went, absolutely. And I was like, I don't know that I didn't say this to her in the moment, but I don't see that happening in my group of kids. But maybe she's talking about college age kids where they're just texting and hooking up, literally hooking up. And then
But you know, that was interesting because in this book, that's what Erica talks about that she wants to do. She wants to just get it out of the way. She wants to lose her virginity and just get it out of the way before she goes to college, so that it's not a big deal. And I was like, that shocked me back then. And it still shocked me this time that I was like, what?
right?
What's that all about? But it sounds like a similar sort of theory that's like, get it out of the way and then see if it works out. But
isn't that counterintuitive? I mean, shouldn't sex be in part about a certain connection, and that connection is built by having some kind of interpersonal relationship with someone? I mean, I feel like they're missing the opportunity to grow something instead of just like, you know, I don't know. I found that upsetting. When she told me that, I was really upset and a little bit heartbroken. If that's the way people are functioning these days, they're missing out on some really special moments. They're just kind of going straight to like 4th gear instead of really working it out every single gear. I don't know.
Yeah. I agree.
But I hope that's not happening. I hope kids are, you know, building a relationship, because a relationship is about so much more than sex. I mean, when you get married, sex is like 10% of your relationship, unless your sex is not working for some reason. It's about everything else. It's about negotiating. It's about enjoying each other's company, having fun. How do you spend time together? How do you spend time apart? How do you negotiate your chores? How do you negotiate money? It's just about so much more than just sex. That maybe that's their point. Get it out of the way, and then we can figure out if the other parts work. The mystery is solved, that one big mystery. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope that's not the case.
Maybe we should have our 3 kids read this book and have them
see
book club
what
about
they.
it. I'm not even joking. We should have our kids, well, your youngest kids read this book, because they're different. Well, our 2 youngest, your youngest and my youngest are
older than
the
her
same
youngest.
age.
Yeah.
but Vivian is younger, to
Younger.
see what they think about it. I don't know if you guys would be willing to do that, but I think that might be a cool experiment.
Yeah.
Just to see what they think. Or even Kylie. You know,
Hey, I'd be happy if Vivian read a book. So
hey, I need you to read this book about sex. Are you into that, Vivian? Good. Okay, here it is. Have fun. It should be a quick read. But I would be interested to hear.
I would love to know what they have to say about it.
Me too. I don't know, something to consider.
mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll ask Isla if she'd be into that. Georgia would just rip it to shreds. Georgia would be like, the writer, the bleh. I have a feeling. But maybe not. I don't know.
I think Lily might do that too, but we'll see.
Kylie would definitely rip it apart.
Mhm.
They read so much, but it's not about that. It would be about the content. Like,
Yeah.
how
Well,
The
that's what I think. I
relatability.
think that's the part Lily would rip apart, actually.
The
But,
content?
Yeah.
I'd be interested.
But I would
let.
I'm curious to know if she would or not.
Interesting. Interesting. That would be a really good conversation. I mean, I don't know if they'd be willing to podcast about it. I would love a podcast about it, but I'd just like to hear what they have to say as a human being,
Right.
you know, to see how they react to this book.
We can ask
We can
if
ask.
they'd read it. I don't know.
Would Camille want to read it? You think? Yeah. Would she be better than Vivian? Or more apt to
I don't know.
participate in a conversation about it?
It's a good question. I don't know.
We could have all of them. Have Max read it. This has ruined my
Well,
senior year.
You know, the funny part is, Max is the Michael in this book, right? Like, so
Maybe
it's
he should read
really
it.
interesting that from a male perspective, Max went through this almost exact same scenario.
Oh God, he did.
And is possibly still devastated. It was his first
Aw.
love. And let me tell you, it has not been an easy breakup.
Oh, bless his heart.
But it's interesting that like you see nothing about his perspective except the rage. And there's
And the sexual
whole
drive.
lot more than just that
Mhm.
from my kid. And those two things are very much there,
Oh yeah, totally.
like very much interested in sex, very angry about the breakup. And then the heartbreak and the tears and the I don't understand and
Oh,
how can
bless
someone
his
move on? You know what I mean? Like, so it's really interesting. I do wonder, like, what is the boy equivalent of this, if there is anything like that?
I wonder what he would think about it if he read this book, because it's the girl's
Uh-huh.
perspective.
Correct. I wonder too. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll just have all of them read it, including Kylie,
And see what happens. Yeah.
and just see what they think. I mean, maybe I think that's actually a really good idea. I may see if maybe it's such an easy read. I mean, they could
Yeah.
read it in a minute. Isla maybe not, but she could. I'm sure they have it on audiobook. Could you imagine hearing that? Who's Ralph? Well, Ralph is. And Isla, I can see. I can't even think about it. Could you see Isla's face with headphones on? She'd be like, "What? That would be so funny. I may have to watch her listen to it.
Totally. You'll have to get that on camera.
I mean, I'll put my
the
Nest
reaction.
Cam and hide it and watch her go, "Oh my god, what's
I think
happening?"
we should all hide in the bushes and take pictures of our kids while they're reading this.
Oh my god! I mean, I would pay money to watch Isla listen to this book. That's hysterical. Isla would die. You know what's really crazy though is, I think our kids have the benefit of having parents who are happily married. We are all lucky. Kylie's parents are happily married. All of the parents they're surrounded by, they don't have any. I can't think of any divorced parents that they're in regular like relationships with. Obviously, we know people who are divorced, but they're surrounded by such healthy, for the most part, healthy relationships. So that, from my perspective, how would that affect how they view this book? Because I was surrounded by unhealthy relationships entirely, like everywhere. My grandparents were unhappily married. Everybody was like, this sucks. That's why I thought I would never get married. Because I was like, definitely don't know how to do this successfully. And definitely don't want that.
But they're happily married in here too.
the parents?
Like the parents in
Yeah.
here
Yes.
are in a healthy relationship.
They are. But this relationship, actually with her and Michael is fairly healthy. It's not 100% healthy, but it's not abusive. It's not terrible.
Well, they're also teenagers. Like they can only be so healthy,
Yeah,
exactly.
You know?
Yes. So
for teenagers, they're very mature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though he's like trying to coerce her, but he's just like a normal.
what boy
teenage
didn't
guy.
do that? You know, you'd have to be suspect if a boy didn't, you know, I think. And I think boys aren't allowed to now. They aren't allowed to ask more than one time. You know, in the Me Too era that we live in, I think it has made it harder for them to follow their natural instinct a little bit. Not to the point of being super unhealthy or to the point of being abusive or, you know, damaging. But what boy doesn't, who takes no for an answer the first time? You know, who does that? And some girls don't know if they don't understand what they're feeling. There's too much going on at one point. Not that you should do it anyway. That's not what I'm saying. But how do you figure that out if there's no negotiation? If it's, can I? No, over. There's no.
I don't think anything is that cut and dried though, because if they're still interested in one another, they're still gonna make out, and it's gonna come up again.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, it has to. Like, kids are still having sex, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Surely they are.
Yeah, I don't know if ours are, but I just mean that kids must still be having sex.
Figuring it out.
Some kids must be.
Yeah,
having
They're still
sex.
figuring it out. Yeah. Okay, fine. It's not as bad as I think. So how do we get our kids to read this book? We're just going to ask them. Are we
Just
really
ask
going to
them.
do that?
I mean, can't hurt to ask and see what they say.
Let's
Right.
ask.
I mean, they could say no, but whatever. We'll never know if we don't ask them.
I say we ask. Do you think they would talk in a group about it? Not even on the podcast. Just, do you think they'd talk in a group, or like, would they just talk to you as a parent and then we come back and discuss? Or how do we do that?
We'll ask them. I'll ask them.
Yeah.
Because I'm fairly sure my kids would not want to podcast about it. It's a little too public. But they might talk about it in a group, you know.
Yeah,
Let's
let's,
talk- let's
let's
ask.
see.
I
See
think
what we can
Lily would
find
talk
out.
about it in a group. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think she'd podcast about it?
I don't know.
Oh,
Good question.
we can ask them after they read it too. They may read
Yeah,
it and go,
they
I
may
am
feel
not
differently.
doing that I don't want anyone to know I read this book. Right? It's so antiquated. And okay, well, I'm glad we read it. Have either of you
Yeah.
started our romance novel? I meant to bring it so I could
I have not yet. I can't wait. I finished a book yesterday, so I can start now.
I started it. I'm not very far in. I have never read a book like this in my life. Not ever.
Interesting.
That's all I'll say. I have never read a book like this.
The look on your face
I
makes me
know.
want to open it. and
Well,
start.
you know,
Immediately.
I already have notes. No joke. I am enjoying reading this book because it's something I would never read, and I will probably never read again. But I am enjoying it with the perspective too that my cousin reads this book and is like, right on. You know, I love that. That makes me so happy because that's really cool that she's really into this. But we'll see. We'll see what you think about it. It's pretty funny. I can't wait to talk about it because it's going to be a really fun podcast, I have to tell you. Yeah, so anyway.
All right. We better get reading then, apparently.
I know, right? We got to start reading that one.
Mhm.
Well, thanks guys for reading forever. I think it was nice to me to step back
Mhm.
into that moment of time and realize how it's cool when you remember something that was so important and influential. This was really influential. I didn't
Mhm.
realize how much so until I read it at this age. And it just really affected me a lot. So,
Yeah, same.
isn't that funny? I wish little teenage Cathy had read it.
I know, right?
Cathy would have been, that was a bunch of bullshit. I don't understand any of that. Tennis coach, really? Is that where she's going?
My tennis coach is nothing like that.
They don't know what they're talking about. They clearly have never coached tennis for real. I don't know. It would have been interesting. I'm glad you read it though, too.
Yeah, me too. And I do think that my 13-year-old self would have probably liked this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the era we grew up in, I think it was a home run.
Yeah, I didn't grow up. I mean, at that age, I was not having relationships. You know what I
No,
mean?
me neither.
Like,
yeah.
So it definitely would have been something that I would have been interested in to know about, like, what doesn't a relationship look like? Because my parents didn't talk about theirs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
most parents didn't, I
Right.
don't think, in that era. And, in middle school, when I read this, my BFF was a little bit boy crazy. And a lot of girls in middle school were boy crazy. And I wasn't boy crazy yet. So I think this was good too. So I knew like what was happening also in the boy crazy world. I'm not implying in any way, shape, or form that they were sexually active, just that they were like, boy. I'm going to the roller skating rink to meet with this boy. I'm going to hold hands with this boy. It was like that, holding hands and kisses and stuff like that. She definitely was not sexually active at middle school. So, but I was oblivious. I was still like, I was listening to Eddie Murphy Delirious on loop. That was my entire middle school. So I really wasn't in that mindset. So it was interesting to step into, this is what everybody's going crazy about. This is what they're hoping for.
I was one of those boy crazy girls, but very innocent boy crazy, like hadn't even held hands with anybody. So like boy crazy, like when I saw E.T., I was like, oh, Elliot's so cute. Like, it was very, very innocent boy crazy. But reading this was like, I mean, it was kind of like reading fantasy or escapist, that it was like, whoa, this is what teenagers are doing.
Right?
Oh my God.
Get me there quick. Come on.
But it wasn't even like, get me there quick. It was like, whoa.
Right. Wow.
But just as much as like reading The Hunger Games is like, whoa. This was, it was that of like, wow, I wonder if our babysitters are doing it.
So let me ask you this. Do you remember your first crush?
Uh-huh.
Who was
wait a
who was
minute.
it?
Oh, yes, I do.
Who was
actually.
it?
It was a boy who lived next door. I had a crush on him for the longest time,
my
but it
God.
was like
How old were you?
probably 6th, 7th, 8th grade, like probably for a long time. And it was so interesting because we lived in this neighborhood, like my house, I don't want to say took up a block, but there was like a street on either side, right? It took up the property went from street to street. And for whatever reason, like we always hung out and played with the kids, like at the bottom of the hill. Like that was our neighborhood. And he lived at the top of the hill, with one other kid. And like for whatever reason, we didn't cross. Like that was a little bit of a bigger street. It's fucking Maine. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not that big of a street. But like cars actually went down that street. The other street was like residential. Nobody ever fucking went down that street. So we never really hung out with them. It was very strange. They were literally a house away, but
You saw him from afar.
I could see. No, I knew him. We went to school together. Obviously, he lived next door.
Yeah,
literally
right.
next door. Like it's not like we were not together. But I could see from my bedroom window into their not really into their house, but into their property. And I loved him forever.
My God.
Such a crush on him.
That's adorable.
His name was Mark.
Mark.
Yep.
And you just sit there and go, Mark.
Yeah.
That's adorable. Do you remember your first crush, Kirsten?
Not really. I know that I definitely was boy crazy in elementary school.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, again, what does that mean? It meant like just talking about like, oh, I think so-and-so's cute.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about it. I mean, so I don't know. That wasn't nothing very dramatic.
No.
Yeah.
My first crush was Casey Teal, kindergarten. And I just wanted to be wherever he was all the time. And then in first grade, Miss Wynn set us next to each other in her room, and we would hold hands under the table.
Oh my God.
And
That's
I
so
was in love. And that crush stayed with me for a long,
Yeah.
long time. He was adorable. The cutest boy. He had kinky, curly, strawberry blonde hair, a big smile. I think he had a dimple on one side. I don't remember. Maybe that was his brother. No, I think it was him. But I moved away after first grade. My parents divorced. I came back in third grade, and he was mean to me in third grade. And I think it's because I left, right? Now that I look back, I'm like, we were holding hands. We were all about it. And then I just disappeared in second grade. And then third grade came back and he was mean to me. And I was like, what's happening? He's mean to me. I only stayed half a year and then moved again. And then I moved all around until high school. And I came back in high school. We were back together and not dating. We were in the same high school. And he is the reason I started going to church because his daddy was the preacher. His daddy and my daddy were best friends as kids growing up. They lived down the street from each other. And his daddy married me and Bert. But I started going to his church because I just wanted to see Casey. I just wanted to see him. And then I never ended up dating him. We never dated. I dated someone else. He dated someone else. It never worked out. He sat behind me in English class and harassed me relentlessly. He'd pull my hair. He'd throw things on my desk. And I didn't like that. And I would say, why are you so mean to me? Stop being mean to me. We dated other people, but I went to church because of him. And I stayed in church all through high school just so I could see Casey on the weekends. Just look at him. Isn't that funny?
That's cute.
Yeah, he was my first crush. And that crush, that little nugget just stayed. And he still has a special place in my heart. I don't ever talk to him or see him. He's still in Georgia. But when we had our 25th high school reunion, he reached out to me and said, just so you know, we're having our 25th. I think it was our 25th. This is one of our big ones. Mm-hmm. Just so you know, we're having our reunion. So, and I went, and it was because he reached out to me because Casey has that little hook, I guess, from kindergarten. From Miss Albright's classroom in kindergarten. And I just thought he was the best thing on two legs. It's pretty funny. What about your first legit boyfriend? How old were you?
I was 15, 16.
Yeah.
My first real boyfriend.
How was that?
And he was absolutely lovely. We're still in contact.
Aww.
Like loosely, very, very vaguely, like happy birthday and whatever. But yeah, he's a lovely, lovely person. Really funny and just like the best first boyfriend. I think my mom was definitely sad when we broke up because she really loved Steve too.
Aww. That's cute.
Yeah. And he told me years later that it was like a divorce for him. Like it just
you broke his heart.
Really, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of shame about that for a lot of years because he's just such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
What about you, Cathy? Who's your first?
I'm trying to think actually. So I'm not sure that I had like a legit boyfriend as you speak of.
Until Steven?
I was in a bunch of relationships, but I was never super committed. Like they were never very long or super, like my first boyfriend, I was a sophomore in high school, but it was, like 2 months and it was not anything past kissing. You know what I mean? It was like, and there was a certain point at which I was just like, I can't handle this. It's too much, and broke up. And then that pattern sort of happened a lot, actually. I feel like a lot of the boys I dated, I was just like, yeah, I'm done. Like,
interesting.
Yes. But like long term, it's Steven. Like
That's
he has
crazy.
been, yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Everything else was never super long term.
Right.
Like not more than 6 months. Like even throughout college and whatever, they were all.
I guess that was the same for me. I mean, my first boyfriend was a year. Mm-hmm. My second boyfriend was a year and a half. And that guy broke my heart big time. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I was like 3 months revolving door. Bye-bye. It's all I could do until I was right before Bert. I dated a guy for a year right before Bert. And then I met Bert and that's history. But yeah, I kind of was the same. But in high school, I had very committed, very serious.
Yeah.
Like I never thought I would like marry the first boyfriend.
Mhm.
I never got to that praise, but I thought I was going to marry the second one for sure. I was like, this is it. I'm done. I'm completely done. And then he dumped me and I got to be Michael from forever and be heartbroken for years and years and years. I was so heartbroken by that guy. And now I look back and I go, why? We had nothing in common. We had a good time sometimes. We had, certain things worked really well. But other than that, I don't know and he was really good looking. So I was just really driven by my fluids. I think, not my brain.
Yeah, but that's pretty valid, right?
Yeah.
Like your emotions really play such a huge part in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you do stay with somebody who may not be the perfect person or you have a lot in common with, right? Just because you're so attracted.
Yes, it's very true. That was definitely true for me in that relationship. I was really, really attracted to him. But I look back and I go, I don't even remember what we talked about. I don't remember having conversations with him that weren't physical. But I mean, he was never not nice to me. Well, that's not true. In the end, he ended up cheating on me with one of my really good friends. But he was never an asshole. He was never, well, that's not true either. Never mind. Never mind. Anyway, it took me a long time to get over that guy. So I feel Max's pain.
Yeah.
And it's hard to be cheated on too. Being cheated on makes you feel like I really am not worth it.
Yes.
It
My boyfriend right before Steven cheated on me and I was devastated.
was hard, isn't it?
It was awful. Yeah.
I mean, the good thing about her in this book is she sort of started, she was definitely emotionally cheating, but sometimes that's the way it happens. She hadn't really done anything other than hold his hand. So that I think was a good example of don't do your guy dirty. Just break up. Because she had enough integrity to say, I can't really move forward in this relationship. I'm not feeling it anymore. I need to be out of it. It's not fair.
Well, and she was also young enough and sort of naive enough that she thought the initial tension between her and Theo, the new guy, was that she didn't like him.
Yeah.
Like she was like, oh, this guy just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
When really he was rubbing her the right way.
I mean, he wanted to. Just saying, he was trying.
But she didn't recognize that for the sexual tension that it was, that she was like, I'm getting something from this guy. I don't think I like it.
Yeah, that's true. But she was also still in a relationship with Michael that she was protecting.
Yeah.
So she probably didn't want that to be happening.
Yeah.
And wanted to be true to Michael. And I'm sure there's a part of her that wanted to prove her parents wrong, that separating would do nothing.
Totally.
All of a sudden, it's doing exactly what they wanted, which is to separate them and to have a different reality. So I don't know. I'm glad we read the book. I'm glad we talked about it. I think it was a good discussion. What do you think? Good good discussion, right? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
On to the gift.
On to romance.
The gift.
The gift. I think there's going to be some unwrapping.
Oh,
From the look on your face.
somebody's going to get some kind of present in this book. You know what I mean? And his name ain't Ralph. It's Nathan. Just saying.
Oh my God.
I can't wait to see how this book unfolds because so far, it's a little Game of Thrones-y, a little, but low budget. Way low budget. Way low budget Game of Thrones. But it's I can't wait to talk about it because it's not like anything we've ever read before. And then we got to think about,
let's do it.
Let's think about what the next genre is going to be, because by the time we meet next, I want to have figured out what we want to read next. I was reading, I heard something. Hillary Clinton wrote a book. Have you heard anything about that book? She co-wrote it with someone else, and I don't remember.
Yeah, and it's like a mystery thriller kind of thing, isn't it?
Yes. And I heard a review of it, and they said it was really good. So I don't know if we want to read anything like that, but what do we want to read after our romance novel? Any
I don't
inclination?
remember. What were we
I don't
talking
know.
about?
We were talking
even?
about different genres like
Horror, thriller.
Oh yeah, horror was the next, right? Not the next.
Oh,
but
well,
I
that's one of
forgot we
them.
had talked about it.
Yeah,
right?
you talked about Stephen King.
Reading a Stephen
Yeah.
King book.
And I said a shorter Stephen King.
And you
That's
said
right.
what?
A shorter Stephen King.
shorter.
Not one of
Yes.
his long
Yes.
works.
Yes, a smaller one. Well, maybe we just do that. Maybe we'll just do Stephen King. Something from him. I'll
We should have
research
done that
him.
in October. Whoops,
I know. Well, you know.
romance in
Missed
I need a
opportunity.
podcast
February.
producer. I need a podcast producer. Okay. I can't think about everything. I'm the talent. Not really. But it is hard to think about that stuff. And I always think about it in hindsight. I always go, damn it. Should have
Yeah.
done that. Because I thought of that too. I thought we shouldn't be reading forever. We should
You
be
know what
reading-
though? We would have read it and you would have been like, guys,
Yeah.
do you have time? And I'd be like, no, I do not have time, Leanne.
Yeah.
I don't have time to podcast about this in October. So we'd still be at podcasting about it in November and it
Good
would still
point.
be inappropriate.
You're
So-
right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. So it's your fault. Perfect.
Yeah.
I love that. No, it's my fault. I really feel like I do need like someone to help me craft my journey because I've just been kind of saying, what am I interested in today? Or what am I interested in this week? So I can reach out and see. And like my postpartum episode that's up now, I've been trying to get that on the books for like a year. And I just couldn't get schedules to line up. And I didn't have the focus to continually ask. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I wish I did have somebody who could help me craft it a little better, but anyway, thank you for reading the book and we'll read The Gift and we'll talk about it in November. Let's hope. Should we schedule it now
Sure.
so we know that it's coming? It'll be a fast read, I think. It's not super complicated. And then I'll figure out Stephen King for December because that's what you want for Christmas. Some horror. But he is a good writer. All right. Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.